Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Cross Circle, the official podcast for PlayStation Source. I'm your moderator, Christian Buckley, as always, joined by Mr. Kevin Diaz.
Yeah. What's going on? What's happening?
And as a treat, this week we have Kevin's cousin, Billy Gonzalez, joining us.
Yeah, what up?
So, like I said, this is a very special episode before we get into the talk show stuffy of it. Today we're doing a spoiler cast for Spider-Man, the newest PS4 exclusive. So we're not going to get into spoiler territory yet. If you haven't played the game yet, we did a spoiler-free general impressions episode last week. For all intents and purposes, it was a review discussion of the game pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, for the most part.
But all three of us have finished it now.
Confirmed, indeed. Yes, we did.
And the long and short of it, I think we can all recommend this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start there. Just generally speaking, you know, Christian, how much did you enjoy this game? Did it live up to everything that you thought it was going to be? Was it
a massive Spider-Man fan? Like comics,
Gotcha.
The movies, TV shows, my entire life. Huge Spider-Man fan. He's my favorite superhero. This game was comfort food, and it was a great time to go through, so I recommend this. Even if you don't like Spider-Man or superheroes, I feel like it's still worth a shot because it's a very human story for being so spectacular, but yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah. For me as well, I feel like, especially with, this game doing a similar vein to Homecoming, not necessarily the same age as Peter, but in the same vein as we're not getting an origin story of him per se. You know, like we're not seeing Ben die. We're not seeing. Oh wait, that's probably spoilers. Well, we're not seeing. A lot of
8 years
the
into his career. That's what makes
8
him
years in
start
the
being Spider-Man,
8 years in the career. So he's already off the bat being Spider-Man. So I like that mainly just because they could tell interesting stories and have a interesting way of portraying him in a sense that we haven't really seen that much before, especially 8 years, like that, it being that long, it being how experienced he is overall as being Spider-Man, and the new issues that he has with being Peter in his personal life, so I think it was a good take. I think it was a good look. And I think you even have said in the past, Christian, that this is your favorite kind of take on Spider-Man.
It's my favorite adaptation of Spider-Man that's not a comic or a show.
Right, okay.
Because I think
Gotcha.
there have been in my head as a Spider-Man fan, I have my ideal Spider-Man. This is the closest I've ever seen to it being realized.
Right.
With some exceptions,
right.
but this is the closest it's gotten.
Yeah, and that is some praise to not be.
I don't say that lightly. Like I genuinely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's a high praise. But what about you, Billy? How do you feel about Spider-Man? Obviously we've known about this game since 2016. Through every trailer that we've gotten up to you beating the game. How has it all panned out for you on a more general scope?
We're both from Queens, right? So like we're huge Spider-Man fans. I have
indeed
on my wall a painting of fucking Spider-Man. My uncle did that like when I was younger. I've been hyped. I even bought the collector's edition, PS4 Pro. That's how excited I was from this game. And it exceeded expectations. Like, I'm 100% with this game, and I'm still content with just flying around.
Okay. Interesting. And you said it exceeded your expectations of the game? Like, you were more pleased than you thought you would be of the final build?
Okay, maybe that was too much. No, it's not. I would say it met my expectations.
Okay, met.
All right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Okay.
But
I see. I see.
Yeah, so there you go. That is your spoiler-free coverage for this episode. The card in the corner. You can check on that if you want more in-depth talk about it. But it's spoiler time. You have like 2 more seconds to get out. I'm giving you time to close the video. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Get out.
Okay, so I think.
Where do we start?
I have two things on where to start in my head. First, I have a thing of last week because I remember you asked me if my opinion would change because I didn't beat the game last week.
Indeed, yes,
So-
yes. I think we should start right there. Yes,
I didn't
yeah,
finish the
I
game
agree.
yet when we did our discussion last week. I was like right after the first of the Sinister Six fights with Vulture and Electro. That's where I
Right,
stopped.
yeah. So you were about what I'd say 3-4 hours away from
Yeah.
being done. I'd say somewhere around that point. Yeah, so you were very much almost there.
Yeah, I did. I did finish it that night, and since then
yeah.
I've platinumed it. But so the ending.
So, yeah, I really want to know this though. Like, I really want to know how it all panned out for you personally.
Right, because
the
if
end,
you didn't watch last week's episode and you're listening to this, I was mixed, kind of, just because of the way the game handled its bigger moments, because they were things we've seen before, and that was like kind of dampening my excitement towards the end of the game.
Right.
I really liked how they handled the final boss fight.
Oh my gosh, I want to talk about that more.
I really liked.
Oh my god.
I liked. Like I said, my favorite thing in this entire game was the characters. So the interactions in that final act, big fan of that. The only thing I didn't see coming was May's death, and again, this is all stuff we're gonna get into. But yeah, that was the biggest thing, including like post credits. That was the thing I like definitely fully didn't see coming. So
Indeed.
I don't think my opinion on the game changed too much from where I was last week.
Okay. Right.
But
So
I thought it ended very strong.
Yeah. I think we have a similar takeaway from that. Because I'm trying to. Okay, if you take out the surprises that the ending brought, like with Miles especially, which I'm sure we will get. Well, even that's not even that wasn't even a surprise.
Right, because that was happening towards the end of the game.
Yeah. So I guess really other than May, honestly, that if we remove May from the story when talking about it, right? I think me and you, Christian, still stand on that same basis of like this story. If you played an hour into it, you're gonna know how it
would have known every single thing.
You will know every single beat, every single twist, and
also on top, like touching on that. Remember we were talking about the post credit scenes too.
Yep.
Miles 1 I got, and I said symbiote. I said symbiote, and I said the goblin could happen. It was kind of a mix of both.
Yeah.
To some
so for
extent.
that, yeah. So this was. No, sorry, go ahead.
It was like a shocking reveal, but it wasn't like something like, oh, that's where they're going. You know, it's like, it's still a thing that's familiar. You know, and again, it's Spider-Man. I know a lot about Spider-Man, and they did take liberties with a couple things, but like you said, like we were talking about before, it's something that I could have mapped out within the first hour. Like, Billy, do you think that also as a Spider-Man fan, like you could see where the story was going to be going?
100%. Yeah. Because I mean, as soon as you figure out, because you read the book, right, and we just know that he has this inventor as a boss, right? But then you get in the game and you see that it's Otto Octavius, you know exactly where it's going.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can pretty much predict the relationship too.
And then as soon as he starts calling him, talking about how he can make people better, like it's not that far.
Yeah, it's really not. Yeah. And to add a little bit more context to last week, also, this was after we were done with the recording. Me
right.
and Christian were just talking, and I was like, dude, like I'm telling you right now, like this story, like you are going, like you know how it's gonna end. You like think you might not know, but you know. And so I had him guess what the ending was and like what were the post grad scenes, and he got like 2.5 of them right, or whatever it was. Like you only missed the Norman Osborn one, which, you know, that one didn't happen, but even it was alluding to it, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, we're going to see some Norman stuff, I feel, definitely in the future, 100%, with, I guess, you know, we can get into it too as well with Norman, with the level with MJ when you're snooping around and you find Harry's room, to find the secret room, you use a helmet that is definitely Norman Osborn's. And definitely Green Goblin-esque,
so
and we have the grenades as well.
I want to get in. That's one of the first bullet points I have written down. I want to talk about just the Osborns, and specifically the Goblin Hands, like you're bringing up.
Right.
So, throughout this entire game, I really liked how they set up their world. and I really liked the way they set up their villains and the history they have with this Spider-Man. So going through, I was really... One of the more interesting things to me was his relationship with Norman, because he hasn't become the Goblin yet, if ever. And I thought that was one of the more, like, carrot on a stick things driving me through the story.
Right.
But yeah. I think the way they were setting it up is we're almost definitely getting some version of what we know of when we think Goblin. You know?
Yeah, I'm not to agree.
That was definitely a symbiote in the tank, and also in one of his backpacks, the backpack items that you can collect around the city. Right. There's a going away card from the Bugle, and Eddie Brock signed it.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioned too. Yeah.
Right.
So that's where
lots of details like that in this game, which is just fantastic.
It is. It is. No, there was even one. Okay, this is completely off topic, but there was even one today I saw where, at least on the Spider-Punk suit, I don't know if it's any other suit, but on the Spider-Punk suit, the soles of his shoes make the Spider-Man mask logo.
Yeah, I also saw that. That's
one put together.
Sweet.
Yeah, I was like, huh. Yeah, but back to the point. Even to speak about Peter and Norman's bond, if you will, in this universe, like, it's a thing where, at least in the book especially, Norman's always trying to get Peter to work with him at Oscorp. Like, that's like an ongoing, like, it's half joking, but he's half serious, like, yeah, come work with me, but, like, seriously, Peter, come work with me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they kind of have that thing going on as well. And you don't see it that much in the game, I feel, which, is fine, whatever. But that is just something to at least bring up when we're talking about Peter and Norman. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, do we all think that pretty much Harry's gonna be Venom in the sequel, or
I think,
what are we thinking?
The way they handled it, and the fact that it was a post-credit scene, and it was like very, you have to like watch it a second time to really understand everything. I think it's like a bait and switch thing they're gonna do. I think what my thing is, and I've seen this thrown around online over the past week or two, I think the symbiote, like, obviously we know Norman is very obsessive about trying to heal his son from this disease. And that, obviously, because that pretty much was the entire conflict in this game. That's what Devil's Breath was for. Yep. So I think the symbiote was just another experimental means of trying to preserve his life.
Right.
And I think once something happens in Spider-Man 2, something happens where Harry can leave the tank, I'm assuming the symbiote gets put away, disposed of, or whatever, and then we get it that way. And maybe it has some, like, PTSD effect on Harry. I don't know how that storyline's going to go. But I really, I think within the first hour or two of Spider-Man 2, if Harry is in that first 2 hours, no trace of the symbiote, we could probably even see the symbiote being, like, thrown out of the picture.
Yeah.
And then attaching to somebody else down the line, be it Eddie or Peter or whoever else.
Right.
Spider-Man 2 start off with Peter wanting to retire because he's training Miles to take his place with him, and then that's when we get the black suit, and then he actually retires once he, is bonded with it, and then maybe Eddie Brock comes into the picture.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, or could a angle would be like maybe in the sequel, right? We have Spider-Man facing off, I don't know, Harry, if you will. Yeah, Harry. Let's just say, right? Harry goes full-on Green Goblin, all that stuff, whatever. Like, he is the main protagonist we see, at least in the trailers and everything and stuff like that. And similar to Mr. Negative in this game. But the, I guess, end bad guy, how this one was Otto, could be Harry as Venom, perhaps? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I think, obviously, that would be a little bit more, that would be definitely, like, cookie cutter. Well, I mean, cookie cutter in the sense of, like, this game did it, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like the minute they start dropping crumbs in the sequel, we're going to obviously be like, oh, okay, it's Harry. That's going to be at the end of the game, similar to Otto, how he was, you know what I'm saying? So I think, like, that might just be, honestly, too safe. And,
yeah, see, because the thing is, the fact that we can see it going that way right now makes me think it's not going that way. because that's the easy path, you know.
Yeah.
Especially like because who knows how long it's going to be between now and Spider-Man 2, and if the last thing they leave us with in this game is Symbiote and Harry, and we have to stew on that for like maybe 2 years or more. Obviously, they're going to want to come out of the gate and surprise us with Spider-Man 2 the first time they show it. I don't know if they do that with Miles being in a suit for their first showing, or if you show Harry being normal in the city, if you tease a completely different big villain in the center and sort of brush away the symbiote. I don't know how they'd approach that, but I really don't think... Like, I think the inclusion of the symbiote, just because of how big that storyline is just a misdirection.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in like a way that I don't think we're going to touch on it, just in a way that like I don't think it's going to go the way we're expecting at all.
Right. Oh, okay. I feel you. Okay, gotcha, yeah. Now, another question that I kind of just have to, I guess, to open the forum, whatever, is look, as much as I think we all can say here, we all love Peter. Yuri's performance as Peter was amazing. I think we can all agree on that, right? Like, Peter... definitely a very, very fun person to play as. Definitely fun to learn more about him and his personality and all that, at least in this game, right? But I personally think it would be interesting to have Miles as the main protagonist.
Main character is interesting.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I think it'd be good. I think it could be really, really good. Now, will this require a time jump? Perhaps. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how much of a time jump. Like, if we're I'm trying to think. So, I'm trying to remember correctly. So, after you beat Otto, I think it's, 3 months?
Yes, it's a 3 month.
After, that's when we get the scene with MJ and Peter.
Yeah.
And, another thing to bring up there as well. Yeah, but, so, like, 3 months right there. So, already 3 months have passed, you know? And then, I'm presuming that it's been 3 months since Miles had powers, but he just first showed them to Peter. I think that's okay to assume as well. You know what I'm saying? So, clearly that shows his powers are progressing and stuff like that. But do we think Peter is going to train Miles? How do we think that's going to play out? Do we think that, Miles could potentially be a main protagonist in the next game, trained by Peter? Like, what do we think is, do we think Peter's going to be a main mentor to Miles for navigating his powers? Like, what do we... Let's just talk about Miles mainly. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they wouldn't bring him in if he wasn't going to get trained. You know, like that's a little bit like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. Yeah, I feel that.
So, with Miles, I think one of my favorite things about Miles in this game, and also MJ, is as a supporting cast, they really fill in the parts of Peter Parker that we know and associate with Peter Parker that we're missing because of the version of Peter we got.
Yes.
And by that I mean like he's not working for the Bugle anymore, he's not in high school, he's not learning his powers or learning how to be a hero. He's experienced, and we get to play Miles and MJ both in those roles. Like MJ being the finger on the pulse at the Bugle. She is the reporter, she's the photographer. She's representing like that part of Peter we know. Miles is representing the high school kid, all that high school drama that comes along with that. His father just died, like Peter's father figure in Ben died when he was in high school. Exactly. So it represents different sides of Peter. So I feel like it was right because they didn't want to do the origin again, and they didn't want to be like, oh, he's at the Bugle because he needs more money, even though he's a scientist. Like, there's eras of his life that people are usually familiar with, and you can't really cover all 3 eras, but this is their first game, so I know they really wanted to have the reporter stuff in there, to have the high school stuff in there, and this was their way of doing it, and I think it worked really well. But I think
I agree.
They might want to continue that in the sequel with Miles.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
I'm not sure if he'd be the main character, but I definitely think box art for Spider-Man 2 is Miles' suit, Peter's suit.
Gotcha.
Like, I think they're both going to be playable. I think the main story will be Peter. I think he will have missions as Miles, and he could probably do free roam as Miles. He's probably going to get his own DLC afterward. But, yeah, I think Miles the point of him, Billy, what you said about there's no point of having him if he's not going to be trained. I think that's a lot of what we're going to see in Spider-Man 2, like Peter having to take on the father figure role, and that's another thing we haven't really seen him do before.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a really cool thing to touch on. I think having a young and experienced Spider-Man to play as, I'm sure that's going to feel very different, especially like moving through the city, because Peter is like slick, stylish, and cool swinging through New York. It would be great.
Like a predetermined
that'd be perfect. Or maybe he's like slower, he's less graceful, maybe it's harder to swing with him. Stuff like that. Right, yeah. Maybe he can't even do those at all. Like that.
Or like maybe you like see him struggling, you know?
Right, yeah. Yeah. So I think with Miles, there's potential to vary the gameplay, which is something that I think would benefit them in a sequel.
Right.
Because like we talked about last week, we thought the game was like fine. It felt familiar again after Arkham, after Spider-Man games of the past. And go ahead.
I mean, so let's just hold on. So something that I thought about on the bus today, right? And I was really just like thinking about the plot of this game, how like to me it felt very safe. It felt very predictable, if you will. And it kind of reminded me, all right, guys, hang on, just stick with me, okay? It kind of reminded me in a way of like Force Awakens,
okay,
where it kind of was like it almost needed to be predictable and a little bit safe.
Yeah, I don't blame it for being predictable.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling too. So like, it's not that like I'm like jaded about it being a story that's pretty, easy to get in the first hour.
Right,
you know
yeah, like, yeah, we should clarify on that, yeah, because my problem with the game wasn't it being predictable. I was like, okay, I know where this is going for most of it.
Right, yeah.
And like we were talking about with the marketing, it's like you could predict the big moments that should have been like, oh my god. Definitely
I have a
not.
huge issue with the marketing. I have a huge...
Yeah, do we want to get into that now?
Dude, I have such an issue post being the game with how they marketed this game. Do you know they're still releasing trailers as we speak? Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, all right, I get it, for the post thing. And like, it was one today where they just said again why they made the advanced suit the way it was and stuff like that. So like, whatever. But when it comes to terms of at least, okay, so I felt the perfect showing of it was 2017 when they showed the helicopter thing. I know you have issues with that as well, Christian.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about from a stance of just like quantity, right?
Yeah, I thought that was that was a good segment to show.
Yes.
As it would have been even better though if Martin Lee wasn't in there because he wasn't in the game. But continue.
Yeah. And if you want, I can let you go off.
I mean, I talked about that last week. But I feel the same way about it. It really sucked out a lot of the weight for his character moments, but
yeah, I just really wish we didn't have the 2018 demo with the raft. I really wish we didn't, man. Because like, if we had no idea that Vulture was in the game or Electro right now, if we didn't know any of these people were in the game, that would have had such a better shock, and that would be one of the moments that I lure in with like the moments that are in this game that shocked me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like May dying, for example. Like having Harry not leave New York and him lying about being in Europe to MJ and Peter and him being sick and then him having the symbiote. Like, we could have been talking also about the raft scene in this and it being like such a crazy, incredible scene, but I don't know.
I mean, like...
Yeah, it's And I think it's even worse also with the coupling of the story being predictable, right? And it's not that, again, the story, it's bad that it's not that it's bad that it's predictable. It's that I personally felt like there wasn't a lot of shocking moments that I didn't know going in.
Yeah.
Granted, we have a whole different perspective because like we live and breathe this game for like 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're not the average consumer. I'd say like we're not the average gamer in that sense. So I definitely feel like we have a different perspective on that, where we kind of have to keep up on all this stuff and everything that is spoken about Spider-Man. You know?
Yeah.
But
I mean, even with that though, that was like a lot of people watch E3. You know, like even outside of the hardcore quote unquote, it's like a lot of people watch E3. You know,
fair point. Yeah, indeed.
Especially just like the Sony conference, or just the Microsoft conference, or just the Nintendo conference. You know, like those are the really big ones, especially for the fan base. Like, some of my friends have known about this game for a very long time, and they were so excited about it because they saw it at E3, or they saw tweets of the trailers at E3 and the gameplay from E3, and they just buy COD and Madden every year. You know, like, it reached a lot of people, and they still saw the promo for the game even 2 years out or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I just wish they showed less. And I think we all kind of agree with that sentiment, where, like, I think we all just showed... I think it would have... Not that it would have been necessarily a better game. I just think it would have been perceived better in terms of, like, us feeling like we didn't get any major shock moments.
Yeah, well, like, that was one of my biggest issues last week.
Yeah, and you were very you were vocal about that for real. Yeah, you definitely lay it out, and that was something that I didn't even really think about, which is crazy to me because after I beat the game, initially after the first hour I was like, oh my god, that was great, that was such a great time, all that good stuff, like whatever, and then it was in hindsight where I'm like, man, like the story wasn't that crazy, right? And like I was. I hadn't put my finger on it. It maybe had been because we've just seen so much of it, or seen the big major parts of it.
Right.
If I say that more correctly, yeah.
I will say though, as far as like cutscenes go and segments, I do think they shouldn't have shown the Raph stuff. I do think there was the whole issue of the Martin Lee character being advertised the way it was, but I want to talk about those Sinister Six boss fights for a minute.
Let's do it.
Did you, both of you, have a favorite Sinister Six boss fight out of, not counting Doc Ock, I want to say for the Rhino Scorpion fight, the Electro Vulture fight, and the Mr. Negative fight?
I think I like, wait, hold on. I like Mr. Negative, Electro Vulture, and then Rhino, and, oh my god, what's the name?
Scorpion.
Scorpion, thank you. In that order.
Okay, what about you, Billy?
I would say that I liked Martin Lee's fight just because it was... I don't want to say abstract,
yeah,
that sounds weird, but it was unique.
Yeah, I dig it.
The rest of the fights, they were just...
At least...
You had Electro pulling up
like
those
the smoke
towers,
pillars, smokestacks.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
Really, my favorite out of those was the Vulture Electro fight.
Same.
Just because it was so aerial, it was so based on counters and reactions, and it really felt like a Spider-Man fight. Like that, you could argue that the Rhino Scorpion fight was similar to like a Batman fight. Like you got to dodge, you got to get your hits in, you got to dodge. The Spider-Man fight with Electro and Vulture, no other superhero could do that fight. Like, it was so uniquely Spider-Man. You kept hitting the Spider-Sense dodge button. You kept having to swing things back around at each other. It was really cool because you could swing Vulture's, his, like, talon thing, or his feathers they threw at you. You could aim those back and swing them at Electro to do damage on him.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. Oh, I did a lot. It was great. And what I mean by that being my favorite as well, like, when I said same, I mean from because I'm reviewing it as if we're looking at it from Vulture, Electro, Rhino, and Scorpion. I liked Vulture, Electro more than Rhino and Scorpion. Scorpion. I still put Martin Lee above those two, and then Doc Ock, first, of course. But it just, I don't know, just the Rhino and Scorpion fight, it just kind of left me Like, it was a little bit just like, oh, okay, that was, and like, it just, I don't know.
They don't have enough combos in this game. Like for Sable agents, there should be a different set of combos that we have to deal with them. Like they could have even introduced it when he said that. Oh, these guys have armor. I need to hit them harder.
I think with the Rhino Scorpion fight specifically, I think there was a lot of repetition. But the thing is, there was a lot of repetition for even the Vulture Electro fight. But the thing was, with that, it was so reflex based that you constantly had to I was trying to be in the air for the entirety of that fight, as long all while trying to dodge and trying to get hits in. And I think that hecticness helped with that fight, even though it was just a lot of okay, let me drag out your animation so I can hit you. The Rhino Scorpion fight, you could really I pretty much stood in the exact same spot and pulled the same exact thing down on Rhino every single time.
Yeah, it just felt.
Just run around.
It just felt.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That one I was just very bored with.
Mm-hmm.
Not bored in No, I mean, okay, I was bored with it. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I was bored. I was bored with it. But I liked Martin Lee's just because I felt like
that had the most stakes because the entire game was about
the most
his relationship
stakes
with him.
I felt like it was very much earned and everything. You know what I'm saying? I felt like it was just that one was just fun to play for me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That one I liked a ton, and how we kind of go back into that. I don't know,
negative zone,
negative state, negative zone. Yeah. We go back there because even that the first time during the attack scene was really cool as well. So to get back there one more time, that was really cool.
See, that's actually one of the reasons why I like the Vultures fight more.
That is true.
Because I did like the Martin Lee fight. I thought it was a really good boss fight, but going back to that was good for the moment because it was okay, yeah, let's go. I know how to beat this guy. With the Vulture fight, it's back to what I said about no other superhero could do that fight.
Right.
And that's what was the most appealing thing to me because this is a game where you just are Spider-Man. You know?
Right.
You are being Spider-Man. You are nobody else. You are Spider-Man. And I feel like that fight utilized that character the best.
Right.
That's why it stood out to me so much. I do think the Martin Lee fights were good, but they just weren't my favorite.
Yeah, I feel that. Oh wait, and then kind of tied in with these boss fights that we're talking about. How did we enjoy the Scorpion sequence?
God no! Thank you for bringing that up. Oh my god.
Oh no! Really?
No,
really?
No.
Oh, I want to hear this really bad. All right, go ahead, dude. Get off on the beat. I'm just curious on what you thought about it.
How many times did he go up to that door in the lab?
3.
3 times? That was 2 times too many.
I agree. 100%. I thought they should have just done just one long drawn, not super long, don't combine the exact time you're doing all those 3, but
if it was one going to the door and it was as long as 2 of those, that would have been fine.
Yes, 100%. I agree. 100%. Yeah, and there was just, especially the last stage of that whole thing, I was just very annoyed because
it was really weird too because
it was just really I don't know.
It taught you how to fight Scorpion. That's what that entire thing was for. It taught you how to deal with Scorpion, but they never taught you how to fight Rhino.
Yeah,
they never taught you how to fight Vulture.
Electro. Yeah, if every villain had that little quick interlude, and they made it quick, actually, I think be a little bit more forgiving in a way. But yeah, I don't know. In hindsight, I do find it very just a weird part where I'm yeah, that was something I did in the game. Yeah, yeah, it was just I don't know. Yeah.
That whole part where we had to swing through the city while the poison was coming up. That 100%.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right. Totally right on that.
I didn't play it, so yeah. I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, but I
mean, my biggest takeaway from that was it reminded me of Spider-Man on the PS1 where you couldn't go on the streets because it was Doc Ock dropped something on the streets or something. That was their excuse for the draw distance and not being able to walk in the city. But it reminded me of that because it was just a dumb little thing.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, that's bonus.
That is true. Also, just to one more thing to bring up about the whole Scorpion poison type of interlude section. He was being real savage to Peter, and dropping some bombs that I just found savage. I think he said, like, if I was your uncle, I would run in from a bullet too, something like that. Yeah, like he was dropping bombs, and like he said, like, isn't it funny how like MJ's always safe when like you're not around? And like I was like, oh man, like, and granted, I know that was like kind of, I guess, a reflection. I think Peter said it, like he said that was how he interpreted Scorpion in his head.
Yeah. So
like those are kind of his dark thoughts that he thinks about a little bit, you know. So I get that part, but I just thought that was savage.
And,
like,
it was actually a really good, speaking of savages, a really good line in the game. I forget who said it. It might have been Jameson, but I forget who they were talking about, but they said, like, oh, this person's so savage they haven't discovered fire yet. And I thought that was a great line.
Oh.
I thought that was very funny.
That.
But
I feel that.
How do you feel about Jameson?
I love Jameson.
I like Jameson. I liked how his updates actually.
Yeah, I like that part too. I liked how civilians would call in based on stuff that you actually did in the city. There was actually I did almost every crime I saw, but one of my friends told me they got an episode of the podcast where somebody called in and they were like, yeah, I was getting beat up and Spider-Man just swung on by and he didn't stop. You're right, he sucks.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
I also thought it was funny how, like, after the first or second episode of the podcast, they're like, hey, if you don't want these, you can, like, turn them off.
Yeah, I like that too, yeah. Where it's like, hey, you know, by the way, you player, yeah, you can unsubscribe, that's what they call it too, like in the mini system even. It's just, yeah. I definitely like JJ.
Yeah, I like the idea of him. I just wish he turned it down a little bit, because it was kind of annoying at some points, but...
Yeah, and
I like that. I like doing that take for him, especially today. I think it fits.
I like how they work the dialogue, like the difference between. So like if you're standing still on like a rooftop, he'll talk.
Yeah,
this is great.
That's crazy.
That one is such a great. If
you enter like a so let's say like a Sable base, and then you have to call somebody, but you're already in a phone call, they restart the conversation.
No, and just to bring up another thing about detail also, if you're one of those people in this game that use fast travel, I don't know why, but in the off case that you use fast travel in this game, I'm going from like... No, I don't. It's just too fun to swing. But I feel you. But like, especially during the main story, when it's a big point in the story where... things are kind of like hitting the fan definitely, and we get the agents that are under the rule of Sable and stuff like that. When you use fast travel, instead of you being in the subway, you're hanging outside of it because there's Sable agents in the subway, you know? And like that's kind of the things I brought up last week without saying it, where the fast travel even is detailed in that sense as well, where like it's not just like a static rotation of like 3 different scenes that you can have Spider-Man in. You know, like there's the one where some guy is have a sleep on him and stuff like that, but they actually change as well dynamically to the story, so I definitely do like that as well.
Yeah, that's really
cool. So much detail. Yeah, there's just a ton of detail in this game,
and it's funny that yeah, I never even really noticed that because I barely use fast travel.
Yeah, I just saw it once. Yeah, I saw it once during the walkthrough. I was like, oh man, like that's like really cool how now, like instead of him being in the subway, he's outside and looking in on these Sable agents that are using the subway too. And obviously he can't go in there because Sable agents hate him, you know.
Yeah.
But also I guess Sable we can touch on a little bit.
We can mention her.
Yeah.
I just thought she didn't have enough to do. I thought she was just there. I didn't not like her. Yeah. I thought she served her purpose, but it could have been anyone else.
I did not. Yeah, exactly. That's my main thing. Where I'm like, yo, you can replace Sable and her agents with any other mercenary army, any other army that's for hire, mercenary, whatever, and that would have been, and just like that. You know what I'm saying?
I was listening to an interview, and they said that they had a lot more for Sable to do, but they said it just didn't fit in their story, and it made everything feel bloated. So if they thought it was the right call to take it out, I get it. I'm assuming that third DLC, Silver Lining, is going to be about her. So I'm totally down to have more of her and like actually explore her character. But she just didn't have enough to do for me.
Yeah. I think that was Brian Intro that said that.
Yes, it
I
was.
believe. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. So I know what quote you're talking about there. Yeah, but I just felt like, I don't know. I wanted more of her, definitely. But I'm
like,
yeah.
I liked the portrayal of her. I thought.
I want more of her, less of her troopers.
Yeah, especially going for the platinum. That was not fun. Those were hard bases. Those are the hardest bases in the game.
Those are the hardest, 100%. Those are hardest bases. Yeah, hardest bases.
You're just pressing square.
Yeah, it's
4 times as much as you would.
Yeah, I feel that. But I think we've talked long enough to not bring up the auto fight at the end.
Yeah, let's start with his turn. Like, just start from like like go straight to the boss fight. Let's talk about when did he? Well, obviously we all kind of knew he was going to turn from like hour 2, but I thought the moment that really stood out to me for him, first off, I loved going every time he went back to the lab. I went into his office and just looked around. Things were getting like more cluttered. Kevin, we talked about this. We were just listening to the audio tapes too every time.
Yeah.
But
those are so good.
My favorite detail was looking at his whiteboards, because you could see that he was originally, towards the beginning of the game, the raft was looking for people to try and design new security. And then after the fact, you go back and you see the raft that has like always been there. The drawing of the raft has always been there. It's always been marked out for what their security is. But at the end, when you go back, it's changed to like, okay, so who's taking care of this? Who's taking care of that? Part of the raft security. So that was cool. The arms, you could see that on the whiteboard too. They were progressively getting more monstrous away from the human arm as Otto was getting more and more like, I can be better, we can be better.
Yep.
So I liked that a lot, and the moment that was really standout for him to me before the boss fight was when he was helping Peter was helping him with something, and he's like, we're not ready yet, it's okay, we have time, I gotta go though. And he plugged himself back in. Yeah, that was the moment I was like, okay, here we go. This is finally happening. Because the thing is, you've been waiting for it to happen the entire game. Yeah. And when that part happened, it was like, okay, Doc Ock time.
Yeah, and I think, especially with his performance, right? I don't know the actor that played him, but especially with that scene you just brought up where, he's like, hey, man, this thing you have in the back of your neck, this isn't ready. Like, this is gonna like ruin your brain, whatever. And like you just empathize with him from a standpoint of like, he has a medical issue, his body's giving out on him, and like I bet it would be the worst to have like you still be there, like you as a person from a brain standpoint and from like a conscious standpoint still be there. You're still as smart as you were and stuff like that, but your body's just giving out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. So like I can totally, I think they did a great job at making you believe Otto in the sense of like he's doing what he feels is right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And from that stance. Yeah, like,
it was
you
selfish.
Really feel for him.
It was selfish for sure, and that's like
100%. Yeah.
I thought his character was handled well. As far as versions of Otto go, he's always usually like the sympathetic villain, like sort of how Mr. Freeze is like the sympathetic Batman villain. Otto and Dr. Connors also, who has a similar kind of tragic disability to trying to cure it. Both of them are very sympathetic villains because they usually have history with Peter. I like that they established that he worked with him in college and he's known him for so many years that he really considers him like a mentor and a friend. I liked that approach to Otto, but
100%, yeah. And just I think also with them laying out that hey, Otto and Peter have like this super strong bond that goes all the way back from college, from his mentor days, and him working at the lab and everything. And I think it really does add a lot of volume to the words that Peter says.
Oh, at the end?
The boss fight. Yeah, because like it is really sad when you really think about it. Like when Peter says that you're my hero, like it sounds cliche just saying it right now, but when you look at that full scene and like when you look at just and knowing the context of everything, it really makes for a very, very strong emotional boss fight. 100%. I loved it. I loved it a lot. Yeah, it's really, really great. It's really, really good. Are we getting into it then?
Yeah, definitely. We can talk about it now.
Yeah. Well, before we go there, the suit that he makes for this fight, for this fight. Like it? Do we hate it? Christian, do we like it? Do we hate it?
I thought it was nothing special.
Oh,
I liked the emotional attachment to it, that he uses the same tech that Doc used. Like, you see, like, symbolically, it's like two sides of the same coin, two different approaches to one problem. I liked that aspect of it, but design, I thought it was, like, fine.
Okay, I feel that.
There's way too many black suits in this game for me to, like, be happy with.
There's a lot.
And that one was just as good as any of the others, and it, again, mediocre, but...
Yeah. I definitely, just in terms of the suit, I think the suit looked cool, but especially that, like, montage cutscene where it's kind of like Peter's last hurrah in the lab to get it going, you know, definitely like that. And just, I don't know how you guys feel about the boss fight, but to me, it was so gorgeous. It was such...
I really like that they got rid of the HUD at the end.
Yes, that's what I'm about to say. Yes, them removing that HUD when you're fighting on the side of the building, that was, oh my gosh. Like,
that entire sequence.
That was so great.
So good. One of my favorite parts of that entire fight, actually, was the pre-fight with Norman, where he's trying to, like, scare Norman into admitting, like, oh, you're right, Otto. And Norman just is like, you know what? No, you've always sucked. Like, this is the truth. You're an idiot. You suck. You've only been good when you've worked for me. I loved that, because Norman's just a scumbag this entire game. He's great at it. And even better, when he drops him and Spider-Man saves him, he looks up at Spider-Man and he's like, yeah, that's right, you saved me. Like, he's a
smirk.
Dick.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah. And that you don't really see that dickiness. Well, I mean, you see it a little bit, especially with the MJ mission.
Yeah, when you're in his
how
apartment.
he talks to Sable. Yeah. Definitely, you start to see that. But, of course, you know, definitely, he was being straight up asshole, 100%. But like, talking about the pre-fight, I'm talking about, like, the first part of the fight where they're on top of the building.
Yes.
And then Otto knowing Peter was Spider-Man for the whole time. And then I love when Peter first, like, he's like, you knew? As like a question. And then he goes, you knew? As in, like, an aggressive one. Like, man, like, you knew. Like, bro, like, you know? Man. Love it. How do you feel, Billy? Not, you know, like, how you feeling?
I love
you know, like, how you feeling?
What was that you said before, that, like, it was kind of weird that they had two...
so it was when Otto reveals that Peter is Spider-Man, like, he, like, knew it, you know? So Peter first asked questioningly to him, like, oh, like, you knew. And then he gets mad at it that he knew. Because of all the stuff that, you know, he essentially tried to kill him